Hello and welcome to the Anti-Statements podcast. I am Elle, and you all know me by now. I mean, I have so many new listeners. If you don't, again, my name is Elle. I'm going to be your host for tonight's episode. And I have a very special guest today. This is actually our second time that we get together and have conversations about what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm very excited. It's been about a year, I believe, since the last time we sat together. But I have Alisha here from Soul Riot LLC. I will make sure to tag her Instagram handle, her Facebook handle. Are you on Facebook? I don't think you are. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah.
No.
But
Threads, Facebook, and I have an email list. So just kind of being selective,
Yeah, no, and that's really good because there's too much social media going around. I mean, you have threads now through Instagram, which I tried to incorporate in my business. I gave it up. I just deleted it. It was too much. Just people are able to do. I mean, and I'm sure they have a whole marketing team for it too, where they have X or what's Twitter and YouTube and the Reels and Instagram. And I'm just like, yeah, there's too much going on. But I mean, tell me, it's been a year. What have you been up to?
Oh, a lot. This starts, I'm about to close out year 4 of being in business. And just started out mainly with pop-ups. And this last year, they've been getting bigger and bigger. So we're going to New Jersey this weekend for Dark Force Fest for the second time. It's the biggest Gothic industrial music festival, I think, on this side of the world, at least on this continent that I'm aware of. And it's been pretty cool. Last year, we had a phenomenal experience. I was probably one of the only people, the only serious presence when it came to metaphysical and knowledge of crystals and knowledge of astrology. Heavier emphasis on astrology this year because it's so important, but also relevant to what I do. And so we're going back for another year, and it's going to be amazing. And then we've done everything from World Oddities Expos to major metaphysical festivals, the local witch markets. But a lot of just really taking everything to the next level. More podcasts, more nuanced niche crystals because they're really speaking to me now, but also being a wonderful point for everybody to just come and talk about where they're at and how they want to elevate. And yeah, for sure.
I mean, congratulations on 4 years. That's amazing. And a lot of you are not going to know this, but me and Alisha met through one of those events actually in Virginia. This was over a year ago now. I think we've actually known each other for almost 2 years.
I think it's 2. Yeah.
So we met at one of those events where I had then was still doing events for my shop. And I remember, this lady comes up to me and I'm like, she's really cool. I checked out her shop and, since then we've just been connected on social media. I since, of course, moved from Virginia back to Texas.
Right.
Hey, we're going to keep this going.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's always very easy to talk to you, like my fellow mercurial sister. So
I know.
I'm a Gemini. Elle's a Virgo, but I'm not your typical Gemini. I'm like a Scorpio rising and a Pisces moon, but very strong Aquarian signature in my chart. I have this theory that the only reason why I'm a Gemini is to bring knowledge from other realms, plural, into the physical realm for the purpose of people transforming and becoming just who they're really meant to be, essentially. Obviously in a higher frequency, because low frequency is pointless. Anyway, that's like saying I want to stay in kindergarten forever. But anyway.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and you all know, I dwelled a lot in crystals for quite some time, not to the knowledge that Alisha has. Her knowledge is way, way more advanced than mine. And I have since kind of taken a pause in a lot of what I used to do, but my curiosity is still alive for it. This has been the last one, and not even this year, the last 2 years has a roller coaster for me. Yeah. And I feel when I go online, and it's kind of funny because I'll go online and they're like, Mercury's in retrograde, and I'm like, I'm having a tough time. Yeah. And it makes sense, like clockwork. It's like that has to be aligned, and that's really what we're going to be talking about. How can we understand what's going on astrological specter, and how can we help ourselves? I'm very much aligned, or very much a believer on energy matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just quit my job like about 3 or 4 months ago. We just
Mm-hmm.
weren't,
Yeah, no,
you
it's
know?
so true.
And it was such a draining place. It was just such a terrible place for me, for someone who loves to talk. I didn't have that communication with anyone, not my bosses, not my coworkers. I was there for about a year, a little over a year, and it was just physically at this point becoming too much. And that's really when I started to understand, like, hey, I've always been like this, right? The moment that I realize something is off energetically or, astrologically, like, I'm like, I need to understand this better. And that's what I want to share with, our listeners today. It's like, on a different level, we obviously know what's going on around the world. Like, we know the basics. Hey, if something's making you sad, don't go looking for more on the subject.
100%.
But if you're having, like, for example, I had to look for another job, right? Like, I had to continue to do what I have to do. And I was like, I need to find that balance. And that's like important, for us to find a balance, what we need to do, what we know we're happy doing, and making time for it too, So what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you think we approach this?
Well, I think that, so when I first got into all of this, I was gifted a crystal. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that really my experience with crystal started as a child, and I didn't even realize it. It started with a marcasite ring my grandmother gave me. And for some reason, whenever I put this ring on, initially I just felt better. And I couldn't understand why. Evidently, I was just very sensitive as a child and just absorbing other people's feelings without realizing it. And then in about 2018, I was in a pretty toxic work environment, right? So as many people are, but this was above and beyond. But anyways, so I was gifted hematite, like these magnetic hematite beads. And I was really trying to manage anxiety at the time. It was still manageable without medication, but just try to get it under control. And I started to realize I would feel better as I held these beads, and I would research hematite. And eventually I realized that it's a protection crystal. It's a grounding crystal. And it's also related to marcasite, actually. And so I started collecting them. And then there was a 2-week period where I went to the crystal store and bought 12 crystals. And I was just like, no, I actually listened this time to the astrology. I did everything. No, I actually was careful this time. I followed my steps and the goals I set for myself. I was clear. Something else has got to be going on. And so I realized that there was significant astrology at play during that year. And I started to learn it slowly. It intensified when we were in lockdown. I watched a lot of David Palmer, the Leo King. Phenomenal astrologer. Like, his technical knowledge, the way he pulls from occult texts, he has manuscripts that are hundreds of years old in his office. Mad respect for him. Within the realm of his knowledge. So I started to get curious about stuff and study, and then I would study other astrologers as well, and from other astrologers. But then I realized there was this natural aptitude for me. I would just get it. It just made sense. All of it made sense. And so I'm kind of going into my professional history, but then in about 2021-ish, so I started to follow Brian Scarborough, Fixed Air Moon, who worked with David. Actually, he was originally doing audio and production and all that in David's studio. But anyways, him and his then girlfriend would do shows, and so he started to offer astrology classes. So this year, Brian and I already knew each other, right? And we talk online, but this last year, I just finished my astrology mentorship, and he would poked at me when I joined. And I was like, he's like, why are you here? You already are a great astrologer. You already know all this stuff. I was like, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. And it was a great, it was 6 or 8 sessions, a couple hours each, 2 to 3 hours each. And Brian's just awesome dude. So and it affirmed that there is an ebb and flow of things. There's different tools to measure that. And even within astrology, there's different ways you can measure certain things. And, I've come to the conclusion, and this is my explanation, that the astrology is the what the fuck and the crystals are the how the fuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So, and of course there's multiple how the fucks, right? But that's the one.
Yeah.
speaks to me, right? Otherwise, like, it doesn't make any sense. Why am I carrying all these crystals in my bra if I don't know what the reason is, right? Not just to go jingle jangle because it sounds fun,
Yeah, no, and that's exactly how my journey began. Curiosity, looking up, the experts. And it's funny they say putting crystals in your bra. I've never put a crystal in my bra, or maybe not yet, but I've carried them in my purse, right? And
Okay.
yeah, and one of the first crystals that I actually learned about before I had my shop and everything was tourmaline.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going into like a spiritual shop and they told me this is for protection. Also they told me lava stone for grounding, just right. And I kind of put that crystal in my purse, left it there for months.
Mm-hmm.
When I remembered it was in there, I think I told you the story. I took it out and it was faded. It was like completely different than what it was when I bought it. And I was like, interesting. But I feel like I just, it was interesting to me, but I was like, maybe it got dirty in my purse. I don't know. I'm like, I'm going to do it. So I did it again. And so I bought another little piece of it. I put it back in my purse, leave it there for months at a time, probably a little longer at this point.
Right.
Back out, it happened again. And I said, you know what? They're not lying to me. Like,
no.
And that's really, when I started to look more and more into, well, if that, served its purpose, right? That's what I like to say. And that's what I tell my customers too, because all the time I would make these protective bracelets for them, right? And
I remember those.
Yeah, on special order. I also do that. And they would tell me I've had it, for weeks, for months, whatever the case may be. And I was with this specific person, or I took it to work and it broke apart.
Yeah, because it absorbed. Yeah. So crystals can change color. They can also break, because you have to consider things, frequency, right? And so there's the human frequency chart. I don't have a printout of it, but the human frequency chart is really interesting, right? So basically, it affirms that there's low energy and low frequency energy and high frequency energy, right? So when someone's sending you like negativity, it's like they're operating from that spectrum. And what the crystals do is they either deflect or transmute, right? Or rebalance the energy. And I remember when somebody I was dating, this was just before a really fucked up argument we had. This was like 4 years ago, right? Something like that. And my garnet bracelet just shattered for no reason. I was walking and the thing just like came apart. And so I went to the crystal store to get it restrung. And they were like, this took a hit for you. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then it's really funny, that same bracelet, I had restrung it once and I had problems with the same person again. I shit you not. I hope it's okay that I'm cursing so much. It shows my honesty. Anyway, so it did not want to be restrung. He just opened the bag, the beads went like, and then we took it back to the shop owner, the son did, grandson, and he's like, well, what did grandma say? He said, they served you well. So I buried them next to a lake. But I'm just saying that this kind of stuff can happen. Crystals can actually crack in half. It's also said that crystals will disappear, right? And then reappear, right? Because either they've done their job or whatever. I actually have a crazy story about a ring, but I don't want to keep going on and on. But it is a fact. It is a fact that can happen.
Exactly. And it's actually really interesting. Also said that you try to get it restrung. I have customers who are like, I loved it. Can you put it back together? And I'm like, I'm not touching that.
Sometimes it's meant to be, because you have to, like, sometimes it's just the elastic phrase.
Right.
But you can feel if a crystal is dense. But to have it fly out the bag, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I get another one. It's no problem. But this is the human frequency. You see, I don't know. I could always send you a picture, or you could put it as a link. But at the bottom, is shame, guilt, and apathy. That's like the lower red area, right? And they'll actually measure the hertz. They actually measured the hertz to see what the person is vibrating at. This is not bullshit, right? This is all like ancient like stuff that people knew about, but whatever. So it's coming back whether people like it or not. And then love, joy, acceptance, all like way higher because you're vibrating at a higher frequency. And what will happen is as you go through changes and you evolve, you start to not jive with the same people because they're stuck in a lower frequency.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? And so it's very important that you continue to evolve. And what the crystals do is that once you kind of, one, it could be a process of discovery, but what I'm finding is the more you get into this, the more you do your soul work, the more clarity you have. It's important to set some sort of course. So this way the energy can serve you better. And that's when you get to tie into manifestation and all this other stuff. So giving your crystals assignments becomes important eventually. But if you're starting out, right, and you're just trying to get clear and grounded, there's nothing wrong with carrying a crystal and just seeing what it does for you, So that's what I like about the metaphysical. The ones people tend to go for first are protection ones, right? Because we're designed for survival. This is actually a beautiful piece of tourmalated quartz. So it's quartz with black tourmaline rods. This is going to operate differently than obsidian. Like obsidian, I know we've talked about, it's ancestrally important to you with your heritage, but obsidian is a deflector. It's a shield. And consider how it's formed. So what it does is it brings up things for you to face so you could clear it. So when it says it clears blockages, it's like, bitch, this is the problem. Are you going to handle this? Or like, what? It's like, you don't need moldavite. You got to deal with me first. Like obsidian can be like serious, tourmaline's more so a transmuter, like lower frequency to high frequency,
So it can be chaotic if you're not quite sure what it is you're needing, and you may get a crystal that perhaps you're not ready for, correct?
If I would say you should have a sense if you pick the thing up and you shouldn't, like it should cross your mind, maybe I shouldn't buy this, right? Mm-hmm. So I always say like whatever you're drawn to first, that's the right answer, right? But it should cross your mind. Like there was a time when I bought a crystal and I was like, I forgot. There has been at least one, I'm sorry about the motorcycle. There has been at least one instance where this was earlier on when I was learning to trust my intuition. It's like, I don't feel like I need that, but it looks cool and I should have it. Like this is something not exactly right. It wasn't so chaotic, but there was one stone though, and I didn't know, and I wish I had been told. So prophecy stone, if you don't know, this is a special one. I vibe more with this because it's in more of the golden spectrum with the pyrite. But prophecy stone is some hardcore shit. So where it comes from is the White Desert in Egypt. It is, I think, it's like, I'm trying to remember just the practical steps of how it forms. It's not a meteorite, but because of the land and the memory of the land and where it forms, like it was an ancient trade route, right? But also like it's this region of the desert, right? Like there's so much to be said. Like this is like your shadow work on steroids. Like I'm at the point where now if I work with a regular prophecy stone, it's like I get visions that are not mine. I'm like, I'm good. Like I get that you have a story, but I have a job to do. Anyway, circling back to the story. I get this stone because I had chills. Like we've watched the chills go up my arm. The hair stand on end. And I was like, and like my crown chakra was on fire. And I was like, oh, I guess I need this. So I get it. No one told me, don't put it in your bra like citrine. This is a prophecy stone. Yeah. So there was an instance with some weird non-existent spiritual boundaries with some crazy MFer. And I learned real quick on how to shield and deflect. You know what I mean? Right. So, but the more you know. Would I recommend prophecy stone to just anybody? No, but that's part of why it's good for people to shop with somebody who you could talk to, right? So if someone's asking me, I want prophecy stone, or I want moldavite, or I want Libyan desert glass, what are you using now? What's your objective? I can also feel if it's not right for them. Like I'm not going to stop them. I'm just be like, I have no interest in suggesting something that doesn't align, right? So otherwise it's just not going to do what it's supposed to do. Yeah.
And I've had that experience as well. And we've talked about this where I had gotten a jade necklace completely made out of jade.
I remember.
ruins. Yeah. And it took me a long time to actually sell that to someone. And I had it in Virginia. I had it out here in Texas for a few places that I was doing an event for, and people would pick it up, right? And they would be like, "Oh, this is really nice, really interesting." Be like, and it just, there wasn't a spark. There wasn't like, I didn't like feel anything, you know, at the time.
Yeah.
Known. And then my thing is, I didn't feel the excitement in them like when I first grabbed it. So I would kind of wish like they wouldn't buy it. I'd be like, it's $350.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, a little higher. And they'd be like, I'll come around again, you know, I'll think about it. And I just left it as is. I stopped doing shows. I ended up putting it up on Facebook.
Yeah.
And this person actually, he has native roots, and he was out an hour and a half, I think. He was a little far from where I live.
Yeah.
And he came all the way down to check it out, and he you know, took a look at it. He was there for a few minutes. I let him do his thing, and then he's like, I'm gonna take it. And then yeah, I was like, and then he started telling me more about what he does. Like, he does a lot of like music, a lot of like Native American music. And that. And he's like, I wear it when I'm out in shows. And he told me, you know, all about like his family and things too. And I was just like, yeah, this is it. You can go now. I was like,
because it was the right person. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, and here's the beautiful thing about what I do. And I really believe this about all crystals. I believe every crystal is spoken for already. Right. So, but is this the day it meets its person? Right. Because then you're the host of a party. Right. Sure. This is how I make my living, but I'm not doing this just to make a living. I'm doing this because this is my sole purpose. Right. And part of the exchange, the energy exchange, is that I get paid for what I do. Right. So all the knowledge, all the expertise, all that stuff, all the research, that's all part of it, part of the service, you know, and part of the enrichment that you get. Yeah.
And I was bringing it back to the photo showed me of just like the different frequencies and energy. And I saw it, and it reminded me, my therapist just sent me something too to look over as far as like my emotions and like write down, you know, how I feel about certain things. And I thought, I was like, it looks exactly like that. Like it reminded me. But you know, it also brings an interesting thing about me, and a few people know this about me. Anytime I love music, right? I like something like anytime where I felt upset, sad, alone, whatever it may be, music has always been that outlet for me. And I feel like I'm always connected to it. And it just kind of depends sometimes where I'm located, what I'm listening to, what it's reminding me of, you know, what memory. But one thing I didn't know, that people don't feel this, but I always do. I get chills.
Yes.
Body. I get goosebumps. And it's like this entire, like almost like feeling that you get like a charge. And I actually didn't know people don't feel that. I asked, like, I just random people, like, you know, I'll be like, we'll be listening to something and I'm like, ooh, I got chills. And like, why is it cold in here? And I'm like, no. Oh, like, you didn't feel that? Like,
we need to get you around different people.
Well, seriously.
It's true, right? So that indicates a higher level of empathy, right? There's actually a word for that. But it indicates you have more connections in your brain, which makes you a deeper feeler. But also with regard to spiritual gifts, right? There is a propensity for you to have it's another gateway. So music is a gateway. Songs have a frequency. I don't know if you've ever been to a rave before or been to any like electronic music festivals. The most polite fucking people are at electronic music festivals.
Yeah.
The most polite. I'm in DC. I was in DC for wasn't former, but brother-in-law at the time, his birthday. Nicest fucking people. And there was a guy in the crowd fanning everybody. It was great. Yeah, but like that's where the plur comes from. It's higher frequency, right? And then things like metal and stuff like that, you know, people like, oh, it's so loud and noisy. I was like, you're missing the point. The point is that's the power. That's the process of alchemizing, right? So for me, metal isn't angry. Metal is a way for me to connect with my power on the frequency level. So it's funny because people like, and you'll see this at Tool concerts, like people will have different responses to the music. I'm just like, so I don't smoke, I don't drink, I meditate a lot, but you get that pineal gland decalcified and you spend a lot of time in that space under the right frequency of music and the right like brainwave focus point, you're having a whole fucking experience in itself. But that requires a level of honesty and vulnerability with yourself, right? The crystals help with that a lot because they help you understand where, not only where is energy stuck, but it really helps you, especially with this area, can help you really get deep. And then to tie in the astrology component is that each of us have different soul assignments, right? So your Pluto is what you fear, but it's also your subconscious desire and your power, right? So it's like there's a range, right? It's up to us and how we like choose to embody that, right? So I have Pluto Libra. So my generational lesson is to learn proper power dynamics and balance in relationships. So rather than be overpowered, be one who is in charge of their power, right? But it also means I transform with every meaningful relationship I have. And conversely, I transform others, right? So it's very interesting there. It's a lot of overcoming generational patterning of you have to be codependent. I'm not codependent for shit. I don't want to be codependent. I want to be interdependent. What can we make together as I stay in my frame and you stay in yours? It doesn't look like us being all the way over there. It's more of like, I could be my own fucking balloon bubble and you could be yours. And it's like, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? I couldn't think of a third thing, but anyways, you know.
No, that's a good picture. That's interesting. Yeah. Because it's really having trust in yourself. Right. And, it's funny because I've also read a little bit about how drinking and smoking, although they're, no judgment,
no, and it's everybody is different.
Right. Everyone is different. But yeah. I noticed that personally myself, if I have like certain, like I have moments during the year, right, where I'm like, I'm going to be drinking and all this, or I'm not going to do it. But the difference is how I am perceptive to things when I'm on it. Right. When I'm just doing everything raw, my emotions, my energy, my brain feels different.
Yeah, because it is.
Yeah. And it's like, and not to mention, like, not even just, the fun stuff, also like medication. If you're like on constant medication from your doctor, it blurs your way of thinking, of feeling, and also interesting. It's like, but we have to get in touch, with our instincts too, right? Like, I feel like in times where my doctor's like, because I suffer from migraines and all, and they'll increase my medication and increase it, and I'm loopy now. I'm a zombie like, and I'm like, I'm not taking that. Like, I'm just not. Yeah.
I think it's a blood flow thing. I wonder. I think. So like, also like, certain things will induce migraines as well. So consider that. But migraines are just complex. People have not understood them for years. But I will say, just going back to, so for sure, drinking does like lower your frequency. I have no interest in it. I just get tired now. So if I want to get tired, I could do something else, right? Also, like, your skin looks better and all this other stuff, So for smoking, like recreationally, it doesn't interest me either because of the relationship I have with spirit and with just all the metaphysical stuff. It improves my perception. But this has been like a willingness to stick through things as they are hard. A willingness to observe and override the nervous system. And it's not easy. Not everybody's made to do that as easily, but it is doable. Now, I do have people who are near and dear to me who do need to smoke cannabis, and I'm not vilifying it, because of their neurochemistry, right? So it's a bit different. I personally, prefer like the old school, not this new stinky, skunky crap, like the nice floral stuff that's natural, etc. Right? Because you want to, a lot of this stuff was considered sacred too, right, in medicine, but they're not like hitting it back to back to back either, right?
Mhm.
So there's like 3 points I could continue this discussion on. But I would say this is that the main point of this discussion, or at least this point, is that everybody has an evolutionary point, right? Everybody's in a different stage of their evolution. Do what you want. What I will share from my experience is that, like, I do better without both. I am not interested in either. I mean, there were times if it's my nervous system out of control, just because my body's trying to protect me from something, then I will have CBD drops. That's a little different, because I'm just like, I just want my, like, I'm fine. Does my body understand I'm not running from a tiger? You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. That's a little bit of a different thing. And there's a lot of herbs. Did you know that magnesium? Most of us have a magnesium deficiency. That's why we have so much goddamn anxiety.
Right. Yeah, I learned that. That's something too my therapist has been talking to me about. I mean, before this, I was told I had a vitamin D deficiency. This was last year. And then now I took like a class for like the migraine thing, and they told me sometimes we have a magnesium deficiency, and that's what's causing the headaches. And I'm like, well, I've been taking it for quite some time. I never noticed a difference. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something else, but it's insane, because it's just like, how much, this is me, this is a personal, things like how much is it medical? How much is it mental? And how much is it spiritual?
Yeah. Well, I think that, like, so like with Virgos, the gut mind thing is even more important,
Yes.
right? Every Virgo I know has a stomach issue because they're overthinking.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's exactly to the T. Yes. Yeah.
You have Virgo placements. You don't even have to be a Virgo sun, right? So there's that. I would say good nutrition solves a lot of it. And then, but then if you notice, a lot of the crystals for Virgo are like mental crystals. And then there's some that are mental and physical, like prehnite, which I don't have. I haven't had to use that. Tree agate, that's also over there. Like things that connect the mind and the body. But I think to tack in the astrology of 2025 to, I think it's like 2020, so like mid 2026, maybe 2027. I'm more, that's more of like technical information, but the concept of this transit is that, looking after our mental health is so important now with the South Node in Virgo. So the lunar nodes are important, right? So everybody knows their sun sign, their moon sign, their rising sign, right? They're different facets of your soul and your personality, etc., right? But we're born with assignments, and that's the North Node and the South Node. So that's the direction your soul is highly encouraged to move towards. You don't have to do anything, but highly encouraged. And the South Node is either past life karma, because it could be past life, and I have a theory about that. Or just talents you come in this world with, right? And there's like some sort of like rebalancing that happens energetically. Well, that doesn't stop after you're born. The clock continues. And so right now in the collective, we're in the lesson of North Node Pisces, South Node Virgo. So we are cleaning house. Consider the South Node like a broom. We are cleaning house when it comes to thinking things have to be done in a certain way, a certain process, right? We're watching out for our health, like we're re-envisioning that, but also like we are looking out for our mental health. Like, where do we get stuck? Where do we get obsessive, right? What Virgos tend to miss is their point is process, right? What is the harvest? The harvest isn't like, boom, shit, here's a turkey on the table and some grapes or whatever, you know what I mean? No, you go through a process of harvesting and choosing, finding out what's useful, what needs to be discarded, etc. Unlike her Gemini sister, Gemini is in the first quadrant of the wheel, which is all about self-development. Gemini's like, shit, look at all this, look at this, look at this. I want to learn about that. Blah, blah, blah. And Virgo's like, so that's great. How about we simmer down and see what's actually useful, right? But your existence is process.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So, yeah. And what we're moving towards is nonlinear thinking, leaning into that more, because the fact of the matter is there are different ways in which we perceive, receive, and process information, right? Logic is one, A lot of us will spend time in the upper chakras because it's safer, right? Being on earth is weird. And so we tend to go upwards because it feels that way. It feels better there. But feeling, you can only learn what the feeling is trying to teach you by experiencing it. And then you have your extrasensory stuff, like your clairvoyance, your claircognizance, right? Everybody has the ability to develop these things. I don't know if they say that. Part of me isn't entirely convinced, just truthfully. But I will say some people have a good aptitude for that. If you really wanted to, you could probably tap into quite a bit of gifts. But all those senses are there. Like telepathy is a big one. That's actually becoming more and more common, actually, and people don't fully know why. I have my theories, and I'm collecting research on that. There's a couple other people talking about that right now. But the point is that this is a culmination, like Pisces being the last sign of the zodiac. It's a re-establishing a relationship with yourself on the energetic level as a new version of you, because there was a period, this is like the practical application of what we decided a year and a half ago. How can I be me? When were we? North Node Aries, South Node Libra. That's when we cleared out a lot of relationships, ended, a lot of people got divorced, right? Friendships, jobs, that was that lesson. So once we set our sights on our true north, this year is the practical application of that. So it's a culmination and an energetic reset, and that's further amplified as Neptune, the sign that the planet that belongs to Pisces, has gone into Aries. It's at the 0 degree point. It's the starting of a whole brand new cycle. The last time I was there was 164 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a lot to process. So what's been really interesting for me to report on the astrology is I remember North Node Gemini, South Node Sagittarius, and then North Node Taurus, South Node Scorpio. Easier to report on for me, for a lot of reasons. It's because it's more concrete. But what I had to figure out, and I couldn't put my finger on it for the first couple months, is there's levels, there's layers, right? For some people, they're just coming online. Then there's people like me walking around with Libyan desert glass in my bra at this point, feeling like a fucking fembot. Like, shut that shit down right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, like so you have to consider the layering of that, But anyways, and so the crystals you carry will differ according to where you're at. And some people at the gate, like this girl's just getting into spirituality, and I could sense that there was something interesting about her. Vibed right away with Prophecy Stone. I had no issue with her taking it,
Right. Yeah. So, and I think that's a lot what's going on right now. Like this is my thing. I'm a big thing I have a obsession with TikTok, but it's not for like the dumb stuff. It's more like the learning aspect, right?
Yes, sure.
And it connects you to so many people out there, about things that you wouldn't have known otherwise. Mainstream media doesn't show you this kind of thing. And it always sparked an interest, a curiosity in me that I'm like, I'm going to research this. Like, that's my favorite thing to tell myself. I'm going to research this. I'm going to put this for later, save this video for later. And I am seeing a shift where people, obviously they feel stuck. There's so many things going on. They're feeling stuck, and they're There's people who are like, I'm going to quit my job. I don't have a backup plan, but I'm leaving. Like, I'm not happy. I'm, physically not well. I'm out. And I'm just like, whoa. Like, for me, it was a little different. Like, I kind of had a backup plan, right? But these guys are like, I'm done. And I'm like, there's a shift going on, like just in the universe as a whole, I feel like, where people are ready to move on. And I'm sitting there and I said to myself, if I go back to a year from now where I was sitting, on everything I had going on at the time, there was a point where I said, I need to change my life completely. And it did. Not the way I wanted it, right? Because things have been a little harder than I wanted them to be, but
they usually are.
Yeah. And I was just like, is it happening to everyone? And that's where that question, started with me. I said, there has to be a connection, what's going on, on the astrological side, and each individual and what they're want for their lives moving forward. Despite all the chaos going on around them, they're like, this is about me. Like, what do I want for me?
Yeah. So everything else, fuck it. Honestly, it's a distraction. Okay, as somebody who worked in media for a little bit and has some awareness, a lot of this is orchestrated where you start to react. That puts you in the lower frequency of that, right? Because then you're responding from survival rather than pause and consciousness and higher frequency. And so, like, the space you want to be living your truth in and creating your world in is from the heart space. And I don't mean love and the hippie bullshit, turn the other cheek shit. That is toxic. That is toxic, just toxic, toxic, toxic. That fits a narrative. To love is to be a fucking warrior, because it knows you have to do things that test your character, that test your will, right? That test your commitment. But ultimately, it's in service of elevating, right, yourself and the collective. So when you are who you are connecting with, I was talking to Hannah elsewhere this week. We did a virtual coffee. She's another professional astrologer who's in Belfast, actually. Is it here? Oh, it's okay. So basically, consider yourself here, and then consider the rest of the world this giant thing, right? So if you are this and the rest of the world is this, so consider us this like small and this is much bigger, right? That's your frequency. You're the people around you, that's the sum of your frequency, right? But if you're choosing to connect with people who are in a higher frequency, and you're actively making sure that you're checking in with your values and what you want to manifest and this and that, you'll start to attract like. And so then you start to build community, right? So like the witch markets are a big deal, right? Because that's the place where a lot of people can connect and be themselves. I don't censor myself. I'm myself 24/7. And I'm not here to censor myself. You like it or you don't. And people really need to get with that, like just in general, not just because my name means truth, but just because like you're here to be you. Like if you're not being a dick, right? And you're just being who you are, right, that's fine. So but anyway, building community. And it's when we have these big experiences out in the world, it's like we remember, oh, I could go to L because she's good at this, she's going to help me with what your day job is, right? Or I could go to Alisha because she's not. So people come to me because they know I don't sugarcoat. But don't sugarcoat doesn't mean I'm mean. I'm honest, right? And like she'll tell me what's going on with the astrology. She's not going to fluff me up, right? She's going to support me and give me help guide me to a solution. You see what I'm saying? So it's those community things that help create a ripple effect, right? And so what's happening is there's this divide. So some people are calling it New Earth, and there's a lot of talk about that, but it's becoming extremely hard to stay in lower frequency. I feel like you have to make effort to stay there. And I'm sure you're getting the shit slapped out of you if you continue to stay down there, right? But what's happening is people are elevating and they are awakening and ascending to a higher consciousness. And that's exactly what's going on. And what that path looks like is different for everybody,
Yeah. No, I do believe that. And I think this is going to be a good place for us to close out here this episode. I feel like we can go on for much longer, because there's just so many other things to touch on. But I know we talked about a lot, to our listeners. I am going to drop the link so you can all follow Alisha's Instagram account. She does a lot of lives that are very informational. They're awesome, honestly.
Thank you.
I would, follow. And then you also have services that you provide too, correct?
Yeah, so they're books. You can catch them through the Instagram, but there's a Calendly link. And basically, there's one-on-one private shopping experience. The call itself is complimentary, but we'll talk about what you need crystal-wise, and I'll put together something especially for you. I have 4 different astrology reading offerings. One's your general chart, which is good to know, your cosmic design. One is your solar return. That has to do with, from your birthday, you're given an assignment from the universe. So what are you working with that year? Thirdly is planning your year with astrology. We have 5 major energy shifts this year. We're on number 2. Wait till we get to number 3. It's gonna be lit, okay? And then we have synastry, which is you and another person. How do you interact with each other? Before you hop off, I've been talking about Libyan desert glass. This is it.
Wow.
This is actually a tektite. This is a piece of the Sahara Desert. It about 28 million years ago, a meteorite smashed into the desert. And what we have is this beautiful, beautiful tektite. It differs from moldavite. Moldavite just tends to blow shit up. Uh, you don't need it. This is a bit more of a sustained momentum. It's good for ancestral healing. When I first held this for the first time, I felt a gentle but persistent pulsating. Like, this stuff is just so powerful. So much so, the ancient Egyptians actually really revered this. I found this out later. I'm drawn to it because of my North African heritage. But Tutankhamun was buried with a pendant carved in the form of a scarab, and I believed it was thought it would help him ascend or travel through to the other realm, if you will. So very, very cool stuff.
Yes. No, I love that actually. Now, yeah, we're gonna have to do another episode, honestly.
Of course.
I'm saying this.
We can do it quarterly if you want. It's fine with me. I've got that going on rotation.
Exactly. But to our listeners, thank you for, sitting down with us, having this conversation. And if you have any questions, reach out to me, follow Alisha, reach out to her. We're more than happy to answer anything we can answer. And, stay safe out there, stay positive. I mean, there's so much going on. Listen to your intuition, be curious, be curious.
Mm-hmm.
Research, and we're here to help. I'll probably always be like, I'm gonna ask Alisha about that, but but you know what, it's like, that's how we learn from each other. And
yeah,
very important about community. This has always been a very open space for anyone, and I would love to continue to have conversations like this and more with everyone that's listening. So my door is always open. This recording, is always open to anyone that wants to talk about really anything. I've had so many different conversations here with different individuals, so that remains open. Is there anything you'd like to share before we let them go?
So I think what's important for people to know, obviously we're continuing to grow. And I think the beautiful thing is that part of getting to the point of where you want to be, is understanding how these tools can be helpful to you, because every journey is going to be different. Everyone has a very distinct soul purpose, right? Not everybody's meant to decrypt, ancient manuscripts and figure out what the knowledge means and bring it to humanity. Some people, they're the school teacher, they're the janitor, they're the, you know what I mean? They play a fundamental role in the community. So, but it's good to know what's going on. And crystals are a wonderful modality for you to connect with yourself and recalibrate your energy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Says, thank you for sharing, and don't go just yet. I'm gonna stop the recording, but I have just a quick question after.
Yeah.
Our listeners, follow us everywhere. Follow me. I'm always gonna say us. It's just how I think. I feel like, but follow me. On YouTube. We're on Spotify. I'm on Amazon, Audible, pretty much every platform you can think of. And if not, I'm on Instagram as well and Facebook. I'm on there. Check, out. Also, there's apparel that I released. Has, the logo for the podcast. So if you're into that, I'll drop the link to, and all the links that you need to have for this video. Please, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.